Are we on? I think we are. Okay. All right, Dave, this is David Atkins, Target Individual, and today I have a very special guest, Ryan Mitchell. I will put his website in the description. He's trying to put together a lawsuit. Well, he is putting together a lawsuit, and he's got over 300 victims signed up already. His goal is, just like mine, to expose this program. He understands this technology very, very well, and how it works. And, more people are targeted than they know, and that's a fact. And a lot of people who don't even believe in this program are being targeted by this technology and being spied on and being harassed and tortured. So I'm just going to have Ryan do a quick introduction. He don't have much time, and then I'm going to merge in a video where he made several calls to the FBI about this technology and how it's being used on innocent civilians. And they called him in and wanted to know why he was there. So he recorded that. So I'm going to merge that video in. And like I said, he's got a website with plenty of videos exposing this, and where you can sign up to be a part of this lawsuit and a part of exposing this program. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, David. Name again is Ryan. I'm with Cognitive Investigative Services. We're a small nonprofit. We're victims as far as targeted, also advocates and mentors, or at least try to be to folks. This is very disturbing for anyone it happens to. So we specialize in little known technologies that the government uses both for surveillance and, in this case, the targeted program. We are not attorneys. In fact, we do work with a few law firms putting together some class actions. We do not represent them personally. We're not salespeople on their behalf. Again, just independent victims. As David mentioned, we were able to do a counter intel sting on the FBI recently, which was great, not only to expose the existence of this program and get admissions on their behalf, but that video can also be used by any victims to also justify what's happening to them. Further, we like to give out the U.S. patent list on our website, and I believe David had said as well, to basically bring light, match the technology with the symptoms they're suffering from. So we're happy to help, and David's been an immense contribution to us and help getting the word out there. And it takes a village, as they say, and hopefully as victims someday soon, we can all find resolution and reprieve to what's been going on. So.
All right. Well, that's his introduction. Like I said, I'm going to merge the Sting video in there, and be sure to visit his website. He's got a lot of information, just as well as I do, a lot of good information, especially for those who are kind of confused in how it works, and it explains it really well. So anyway, thank you, Ryan, and I'm going to end the recording right now.
Cognitive Investigative Services has gone undercover to sting the FBI on its awareness, knowledge and participation in the most heinous forms of torture yet conceived and imposed upon millions of innocent Americans, destroying their lives, removing their individuality, happiness and every dignity. We are dedicated as victims and advocates to bringing justice to this inhumane, violent crime perpetuated in whole and in part by the U.S. government upon our people. For 30 years, the U.S. government has illegally experimented upon and tortured U.S. citizens with an invisible weaponized form of remote neural monitoring known as Voice of God, killing millions directly and indirectly. It's time this intentionally imposed insanity comes to an end once and for all. Our federal court system, law enforcement officials and intelligence agencies have failed to protect, serve and administer equality for all. We the people must rise, gather and take our freedom back, regardless of the cost.
Good, I got an appointment today, sir.
All right, can I see your ID real quick?
Sure. How's your day going?
So far, so good, no complaints, man.
Good, I try not to complain either.
All right, man, what year is your truck?
Oh, that's an 18.
All right.
Yeah, it's a little toy, you know.
We always got ass toys, man. Come on now.
Could be worse.
Hi, Mr. Ryan. Just to let you know, you're gonna go. Hi, Mr. Ryan. I'll open the door on the left-hand side. Just follow the instructions put on the window. Come on.
Thank you.
Your hat, your shoes, your watch, your shirt, and your boots also, man. Just like the airport, but without the attitude.
Oh, belt too?
Yes, sir. Got a what, 4.5 inch lift, or?
Oh, I think it's like a 6. I bought it that way, yes, sir.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
All right, sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
It is like the airport.
That's it. That's what I said. Come on in.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Give me 1 second. Let me wait for you. All right.
So busy?
Little bit. Hopefully, it just dies down the rest of the day, you know. On a Friday, you know, but
Of course. Well, guess it could be worse.
it could.
They take care of you here?
But of course,
Well, that's a good thing, too.
can't complain. Cannot complain.
I like those federal perks, I hope. Well, the insurance, it's killer.
Yeah, they're good. So sometimes it's like any job. Sometimes it's lousy, sometimes it's good.
Oh, I hope it's not lousy. I mean, it's better than not having a job, so.
That's right.
Especially with the economy and state of things, you
Oh,
know.
man, yeah, I hear you.
And I hear this is one of those Tucson's a trafficking area, so.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I hope they stop down in the fentanyl.
You might want to fix your hat. It's still fucked up.
Oh, could be me.
No worries, right? All right, Mr. Rowan, what you're going to do is wait right here. When you hear a click, the door's open, okay? Push
Yes, sir.
the door really hard. It is heavy. Walk up there to the 2 double doors. The door on your right is the one that's open. They're going to have you check in at the window, and then the agent will come out and get you out of the door. All right? Not a problem. And then when you exit, you'll exit that turnstile right behind you, sir. All right, sir. Have a good day.
You will. How are you? Thank you so much.
You go and grab a seat. The agent will be right out.
I appreciate you.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
I try not to complain. Sorry for being late.
Oh, you're all right. Thanks for meeting us down here.
Yeah, sorry, I had some.
I'm Ed. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir. Ryan.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Pleasure.
Nice to meet
You
you.
can
too.
follow us
Oh,
in
did
this
you want to
way.
grab your
Oh,
your
yes.
water?
My apologies. Sir.
I mean, we have water too, but.
More polite to bring your own, right?
Well, if you run out, we got extra.
We've got plenty.
Thank you.
Come in this way. And then to the left right here.
Thank you.
And then we just have a room over here waiting. How are you today?
Well, I apologize about this morning. Had a couple victim interviews to do and got
Oh, you
started
did?
late. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
How was the drive?
Not bad.
Not
so
bad?
far.
No traffic or anything?
I try not to complain too much.
No accidents? That's what I always run into on the way to Phoenix.
Well, it's not as bad as you might think.
Sometimes if you have a good, I don't know, are you like a podcast person or music? What do you listen to in the car?
Country.
Country?
Yeah.
Same. Country, if I have a good podcast all the way to Phoenix, it's good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, what can I help you folks with?
So we actually were meeting with you. We had been notified that you had made some calls into our office over the past, it looks like the past year. I have kind of a log of some of the calls you made. It looks like you, let's see, about 4 times in August and 5 times in July.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to kind of follow up with you on those calls. Generally how this works when we have an individual such as yourself kind of like making a complaint to us or having something to file with us. Typically how it works is kind of just like this. We'll have the person come in, we'll talk to them, we'll hear about what they have to say. That way you don't have to keep calling into our office to kind of try to get your point across or checking in on stuff. At least now you will be able to talk to us. You'll know that it'll be documented, and then it's kind of good from there. So we kind of wanted to talk to you and hear what you had to say.
And I'll take notes. the
Oh,
whole time,
sure.
too. That will be in our
I brought you
document.
a brief. It's not our total brief. We work with a physicist, a couple doctors, and an environmental scientist. So, essentially what we are is cognitive science abuse investigators. So little known technologies that are generally sealed in these federal warrants that are sometimes abused. I mean, I know one of the biggest issues, if I could show you, on the first couple pages, you're going to see a victim was there, about 250 verified. I mean, you'd probably refer to them as TIs or gang stalking victims. We have about 1,000 in our pipeline, so they're all over the country and they're complaining about the same thing.
Okay.
May I throw this away? Thank you. So the little known technologies that are being used, and I'm sure you're aware of, is like V2K. You know, probably the turnoff word for most of your intake is that of RNN. But the RNN that they're complaining about is actually a weaponized version, closer to a voice of God weapon that's was used in Iraq. Literally, they're getting an acoustic paradigm, or it's called cochlear mechanics.
Okay.
Behind their third ear, you basically use the equivalent of 2 IR lasers. I mean, essentially to acoustically, they start hearing voices. Not only that, a lot of these victims they feel they're having the same hallucinations. So most of these folks, you know, of course, they have nowhere to turn. So they turn to folks like us because we understand those technologies. Not the NSA version, the surveillance version. Most people don't know beyond things like being non-ionizing radiation, you know, infused into your head, hair loss, tinnitus, phosphenes, like, you know, they see stars sometimes, have body cramps and stuff like that. These folks literally they're tortured mentally, physically, and emotionally. So most of them we send to psychiatrists first and foremost, but the problem is with these technologies and the way that they were developed, they were weapons.
I can disrupt an individual from the level of their cell to their system, and disrupt individuals on a variety of levels, from individuals all the way up to the social fabric. Target a specific individual, change or eliminate that individual with very little attribution and trace, and be able to leave prior to any attribution. What we're here to talk about today is the fact that the brain is and will be the 21st century battlescape in many ways. End of story. You will encounter some form of neurocognitive science that has been weaponized not only in your military career, but in your personal and professional lives. It is valid, valuable, and already in operational play. The brain is the current and future battle space. What's new about this is the in-close nature of this. Increasingly, we're not seeing these things as weapons of mass destruction against gross aspects of the population. More specifically, perhaps, might be targeting individuals on a level that allows either direct attribution or covert engagement with non-attribution. Formal definition of a weapon, probably the one that you've heard about most recently, most contemporaneously in the literature, is the possibility to use some form of directed energy to affect physiology peripherally and also to affect the physiology and health of the brain. Case in point here, U.S. Embassy personnel in Havana and possibly in China. Clearly, one of the things we can also do is transcranial neuromodulation, the idea of going through the skull to modulate the node and network activity of the brain, to implant certain brain-machine interfaces. These are many of the DARPA programs that you may hear of now. Probably the one that is most notorious is something called the N3 program, which is the non-invasive neurosurgical neuromodulation program being run by their program manager, Dr. Al Mundi. The idea here is to put minimal-sized electrodes in a network within a brain through only minimal intervention to be able to read and write into the brain function in real time, remotely. And by affecting the way that brain is built and the way it functions, influence in ways that are kinetic and non-kinetic. The attitudes, beliefs, thoughts, emotions, activities. Look at the power that understanding, tools, and techniques of the brain sciences afford.
During the MK Ultra era, a lot of these, the brain was mapped. So we know certain technologies like TMS use an magnetic field, for which can not only cause convulsions but also change the mood and behavior of the target. Now that's close up, right? So that was back in 1986. The first, I want to show you a U.S. patent list we put together, if you don't mind.
So I apologize if I interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I might interject every now and again.
Sure, no, please.
Just to
You know,
parse it
I would
out.
appreciate it
Yeah,
because, you know, honestly, we can't really get answers when we have all these victims.
It's just helpful for us to understand if I can maybe like parse it out
Sure.
with you, because that was good background knowledge. But in terms of some of the stuff you were saying, I just want to go back and make sure we're kind of all on the same page. So when you were talking about you said us. Are you working with someone on this?
I work with a physicist, 2 doctors, and an environmental investigator from California, formerly FDA.
Okay. And
So
these are all people, are you guys a team, a business, what?
we're a nonprofit.
A nonprofit?
So essentially what we do is we dedicate our time. I have a small business on the side, and just honestly, that's what we do. I mean, we're inundated with, you know, victims that can't find help anywhere else.
Okay. And where do you say these other people are from? Are they you're in Phoenix, correct?
Yeah, two, the physicists and the environmental scientists are from California.
Okay.
Okay, and then 2 of the doctors are in Phoenix.
Can I ask, like, how you came across this? Like, how did you meet these people? How did you learn about this?
Essentially, I was targeted as well.
Okay.
So.
When was that?
Started 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
And then, of course, the first thing I did is I went to a psychiatrist. Based on their medical training, I'm a software engineer by nature and a small business owner. So I went there, I was assessed, I was, you know, found to be in my right mind to be sound, and I wanted to know what was happening. So I reached out. There was really no place to go. These TI groups that you find on, let's say, Facebook, Quora, I mean, we're talking literally maybe 250,000 Americans that are getting a heavy dose of what we call the voice of God. And the reason we say that is if you go back to the Iraq War, the same psychological weapon was used to literally bring a battalion of Iraqi troops to their knees. They were induced a fictional spiritual experience. So for those that don't understand the technology, because it is semi-classified, but, you know, PD6 says anything that violates constitutional law is no longer classified, right? So there's certain doctors out there like that work for DARPA, like Gerardondo and Duncan used to work for DARPA as well, that, you know, explain this, you know, fairly well.
MIT was awarded a number of years ago to Woody Norris. This is 2005 or 2006. And that award was $500,000 for doing what's called acoustic heterodyning, being able to send a signal from 2 points into an individual so they literally hear a voice in their head that nobody around them hears.
I decided to branch off and find other people in specific areas.
And sorry to cut you off again.
Sure.
How do you, you said you have a list of people and you were just kind of talking about that. You try to find other people. How do you?
They're everywhere, sir. I mean, if you go onto Facebook and look up TI or gang stalking, you're going to find hundreds of thousands. Like literally the sample we took originally started with 5,000. So we whittled that down to people that weren't just having a V2K, or at least felt paranoid, felt that they were being followed, or every electronic they have is being hacked. And but we're talking about the people that had specific inductions, like cochlear mechanics, so and that of visual distortions they shouldn't have.
If you want to cause a specific psychiatric illness, you would have an infrared device that followed the person, and you would link it to a pencil thin microwave source, so the microwave beam would always target a specific gland or a specific part of the brain or an eye or a heart. So you would have them being targeted.
We've been very selective in the people that we focus on, because even though their personal experience is different, the symptomology is exactly the same.
So you reach out to these people, you find them on Facebook and you reach out to them and you offer them assistance, or what do you?
Essentially answers. So part of, if I could explain the way that these weapons work, okay, they're literally, it's U.S. government technology. There's no doubt, okay?
And
there's 2 arrays in the world that can do this.
Where did you find that?
Where do I find that? Between our experts and our research. So there's 2 arrays in the world that can do this. And we have one, and the UK has another. That's why it's also a massive issue there.
The U.S. You're saying we as the U.S.
This is U.S. government technology.
Okay.
So
you found this in research.
Extensive research. Military interviews with people. My grandfather worked at Area 51.
Oh wow.
My other grandfather, World War II vet, was in Roswell. About the time that either or. So
level microwaves were causing an enormous amount of cancers and leukemias and ill effects. And by then, everybody was leaping onto the microwaves as stealth weapons, and they go from there, which was the 50s, right up to and including the present.
So the distinction we want to make, and I'm grateful that you called, is not in the surveillance aspect, even though, like, to be honest, FICA Act 702 says it shouldn't be used in America on any, citizen. Granted, I know there's whatever leniency in certain ways, but and then I'm sure you've heard the old, this is a weaponized version. So it induces emotional and mental manipulation, modification. And if you look at those patents, that are on there, you'll see, the hideous application of them. And we're talking about ELF, extremely low frequency, EMF, RF, IR. These things are distributed through cell phone towers, and we can point them out to you. So the issue with most of this technology, because it's extremely low frequency, and the neural signature, since 1994, has been able to been acquired remotely. Like your fingerprint is unique, your neural signature is unique. So obviously there's different forms of acquisition. It used to be like EEG, tomography, fMRI is probably the most frequent. Now, of course, you've got DNA bioresonance that's being used both ways. So, if you collect someone's DNA, then they'll translate that from DNA to ions to data sets to bioresonance, and then the opposite way, which is basically ions to the equivalent of DNA or data sets to DNA bioresonance. So the issue with some of these patents is they were developed as, the reason they're called MK is obviously mind and control, which is the German K. So they were developed to do one thing. These people are not crazy. They're not seeing things. They're being induced with this. And it's very simple to get them off of it and get their lives back together, is to take them off the EBL. So that's the issue we have.
Are coming out.
Technology called biocoded directed energy. And that's a top secret thing that was developed. And what it is they get your DNA. Once they have your DNA, they take the DNA and they put your DNA code in a supercomputer, And in that supercomputer, they run algorithms that biocode electromagnetic transmissions so they bioresonate with your body. Once they've done that, they can transmit that from satellites or cell towers or aircraft or any number of ways. And that signal will only affect you and nobody else. In other words, everybody standing next to you is not going to hear the content because their receiver is not tuned to that bioresonance.
Patent number 6011991, remote brain computer interface neural monitoring, i.e. via satellite, from the location of the individual to a remote location so that the brain activity can be computer analyzed.
I mean, I've reached out to everyone. I've talked to people at the DOD, the military. We have a patent that we use to backtrace some of these neural networks, the deep convolutional neural networks and RNNs that are being used.
Is that patent in there too?
Yeah,
The one that y'all,
that's one of them, yeah.
and you applied for it?
What's that?
Or y'all's company applied for it, or nonprofit?
We have access through a friend that's helping us out, put it that way, so. And obviously you understand how disturbing this stuff is to people.
Yeah, and so you said that you, 2 years ago, is when it started for you, correct? Yeah. And so is that ongoing for you?
Not as intense as it was before. Okay. So
have
again,
you done stuff to alleviate that? Have you taken like medication or anything to alleviate?
Sir, I mean, generally they send people to mental health services. This is probably one of the biggest, forgive me, tragedies in our society right now. Because there's no way to shield from an EMF, an electromagnetic field, and they're sent in pulses. So.
Yeah. So how did you, I guess, alleviate it? If you said it was more intense 2 years ago, but now it's better. How is that? Well,
it's extremely disturbing, right? So you're fine one day. I'm in my 40s, and generally, if someone's schizophrenic, it's between 19 and 25. You don't wake up at 43 and start hearing someone telling you to kill yourself, or we're going to rape your girlfriend, we're going to break into your house. So we understand these are coming from comm centers, our comm centers. We also know that, you know, CHSs are being used as proxy investigators that are unconsensual, and that's another major issue. Okay. You know, I mean, the old school was, if you wanted an informant, you make a deal with them, you have some kind of compensation agreement, you don't use their head as a satellite dish.
DARPA let a couple of contracts back in 2011, 2012 to the University of California for what's called electronic telepathy, being able to monitor the brain activity of human beings at a distance and determine what they're thinking. And then on a second contract, actually developing complex signals, being able to send them into the brain of another person, literally transmit a message. This is where the technology is today.
If they want to experiment on you, by the thousands, they will. And you can be driven to insanity and death, and you just become a tick in a box without any so much as a feeling. Yeah, and this is what they do, and this is why they are above the law. One of the experiments was to take an ordinary sane person, cause insanity, and have a psychiatrist who was unknown to everybody diagnose schizophrenia or paranoia or a psychiatric illness. That was a successful outcome. And the person would spend the rest of their life in an asylum in misery, but to the government scientists, that was a success.
I guess the threshold for non-ionizing radiation is like 300 hertz. I mean, imagine that beamed into your head 24/7. So you can not only tissue damage, cellular damage, but the problem with the weapons grade version is it exceeds that.
I guess my my frustration is why I couldn't get through to government, members of government in the House, Senate, or in the judiciary, or in the administration, or in the Inspector General's office, or anywhere, to actually start to realize what they were doing is stand up and say something against it openly. That was kind of the very frustrating part, because you thought these people who took the same oath of office that I did would actually do that, and you also thought that they would value the principles in the Constitution and what they stood for in terms of human rights and human freedom. But they don't apparently care for that. I mean, it's more it becomes an issue of money, control, and power. And it's not a question of human rights anymore.
You know, I understand what the FICA courts have done, but this is dangerous to people, like literally cognitive issues, slowing, and if you understand the benefits to the output of a neural network in comparison to the input, you literally create these clusters. Let's say there's one in Phoenix, and you do them regionally, right, for economy, you know, or expediency. But these people are, I mean, I don't know if you know much about deep convolutional neural networks. So those artificial neurons are people. Those are neural signatures. You know, they're used for different things, but these are real people that are literally, I guess, the only way to put it is, I mean, they're being forced brain to brain, or BBI. So this is a weapon.
Talking about augmented reality and VR right now. If you've taken any drugs like LSD, suddenly it becomes real, right? Our minds are actually doing AR or VR, right? Putting dragons in the room and creating like all this stuff. We're able to, the point is, we are able to do that with our brains as they exist right now. So there's no need for external hardware. Once we tap into the brain, our minds itself can actually create overlays of AR and VR. If we have algorithms that stimulate the right things and give it the right data, we could literally see a screen pop up. We call it hallucinating, right? But these would be controlled hallucinations run by algorithms that would give us everything AR would without any glasses, without any contact lenses.
This technology can be used to beam images and even motion pictures into one's brain. Images and motion pictures that are so realistic that you think you're actually watching a movie or seeing something in reality. It's like a virtual reality 3D rendering that takes place with...
Where we are at the moment is we are definitely at a place where they can literally plug you into the internet. We've done the experiments on it, it's tolerated very well, and this rats was some of the early experiments on it. And what they did was they connected these rats they were separated by thousands of miles, and what they found was they could connect them to work as one, and they call it a brain net. To the listener, you'll understand that as the hive mind. Now, if people think this is somehow sci-fi or conspiracy theory, they're absolutely wrong, and they're way behind this, because this is here now. It's been done. It's been done in experiments, and it's been proven to work. And this is the technology. This is the first phase of technology that's going to come after the kind of AI goggles, you know, the kind of Google virtual world stuff. After that is coming this stuff, and this is going to come in a lot sooner than you think. And quite frankly, it terrifies me.
Can I ask? Because again,
It's
I have
disturbing.
some of the acronyms, so I can get some of it. But with this and the victims, are they sought after specifically, or is this something that maybe, and they have something different, maybe in a brainwave or neurological, that they're more susceptible to it than somebody else?
Here's, you know, and again, I like to be objective. So, of course, at first, when we started finding children like 9 and 13 and then elderly that are literally, you know, they'll get linear scans, we'll get radiation readings that are not what they should be, you know, that's extremely disturbing. So, and then, of course, the demographic is large, just like your TDSB, NIS, Code 3 and Code 4 list, right? So, just like the Durham report, it could be a Catholic extremist, as they might call it, or an ex-felon. You know, the problem is that when it gets to that JTTF level, that's linear, some of these people go into some dark rabbit hole. And there's other groups out there that they end up being targeted with these are weapons. And you know, we do produce some videos because the majority of the victims that we try to help out and explain to them the technology, what's going on, that it's not their parents they're being told, it's not their friends, it's not some guy in the neighborhood, that these technologies, that's why we show them the patent list, they're built to do that, imperceivable to anyone else but the person that's targeted, right? So that's that neural signature in the EBL. So
where do you...
I mean, voices are the easiest ones, because all you have to do is stimulate the cochlea with a set resonant frequency. It's very easy. Voices are very easy. And it isn't people imagining voices, they physically hear them. You can physically make people hear voices, certain voices, and it can be any conversation, and it can be anybody you want to hear. It can be a soft, angelic voice, it can be a god, it can be something that scares you like a devil. It can be anything.
Where do you, I guess, host these videos? Do you send them?
The website, sir, cistech.info. So we've done several investigations. I mean, I'll be honest, we did one on President Biden. We backtraced a network to one of Brennan's companies. And then we asked a simple question that if he's having cognitive issues, and if I could take a step back to the benefit of the output, right? So if you get a group of people, and Oxford proved this, let's say you have a gentleman with Down syndrome, and then you have a genius on the input, that the gentleman with Down syndrome benefits because he's on the output. So that can be used for intelligence, right? But you don't induce, that's covert. Well, in a surveillance or intelligence gathering purpose, you don't induce people, basically RODs or proxies, allowed to harass people to literally to either assisted suicide or, I mean, these people are terrified. And we've got veterans, we've got, we can prove at least 3 deaths as far as documented.
If you're targeting demonstrators, you make them suicidally depressed, and they don't care about demonstrating anymore because they're too upset. With one pulse frequency, you can just make people so suicidal they can't be bothered to act like a demonstrator anymore. All they want to do is sleep or lay in bed all day. We are in a new Cold War, and this is why countries are developing this. I mean, really developing this. And this is why all of the microwave transmitters are going up everywhere. Because somebody, if they wanted to, could use them for other effects. The system is up and running.
And you know of cases, don't you? Like, you know of Aaron Alexis of the Naval Shipyard shooting. You know of Mr. what was his name? Esteban Santiago of Fort Lauderdale. He told the FBI he was under some form of mind control.
So Mom, Dad, Kevin, Carrie, Brendan, I just want you to know I love you more than you will ever know. I could not have asked for a better family. What you cannot comprehend is that we have been attacked by this weapon our entire lives, and the attack against me personally is one of the most vicious attacks a human being has ever faced. I have tolerated the most inhumane torture in hopes that the FBI and CIA would come to my defense, but they have failed to come to my aid. My only hope is that you come to understand what has happened here. When the world realizes what has happened, there will be justice, but I cannot sit by and be a victim any longer, and I refuse to sit by and do nothing while my nieces and nephews and the rest of my family are operated on with mind control. Our thoughts are not private. It is disgusting and it is cruel. I will be launching the first counterattack against mind control in human history. I want to be very clear, this will not be an active shooting event. I will be executing some of the people responsible for activating shooters. If I happen to survive, please visit me in prison, if only to see the same man you have always known, rather than the victim of some mental disorder that does not exist. What you may not understand is that I will gladly die to expose this, and I will gladly die to help one other victim discover the truth of what has happened. If I can help another targeted individual fight back against telepathy, then the sacrifice will be well worth it. To any TIs who read this, understand that your attackers use the form of ventriloquism I describe in the paper to move your thoughts, but your thoughts can also move their mouths. To my friends in Chicago, Lexington, Dayton, and all over the world, get this email out to everyone you know. The most horrific weapon ever made is being used on human beings, and if you ever learn the truth, you will understand what I did here to protect myself and my family. Get this out to other TIs, other voice hearers, so the world has a chance to fight back. To my family, especially my nieces and nephews, I want you to understand that what I do here, I do for your future, and hope that you can live a life free.
So I draw the same conclusion I know that you are, right? What agency do you believe, over the course of time, has experimented on not only children, pregnant women, the population? I mean, we kind of always go back to DARPA and the CIA. I'm sorry, but we do. I mean,
Well,
who else would do that?
I mean, that would be our concern, as you just mentioned, some tragedies that have occurred, and if these people attribute it to what you're speaking of today.
Yes, sir, they do.
I mean, I think that's something we would want to prevent, and I'm assuming you as well.
I would be happy to work with you. These people are terrified. They're told to do terrible things.
So do you know of people who have been told to do
Absolutely,
these things?
hundreds.
And are any of them wanting to act on it?
We try and explain to them, regardless of their circumstance, do your very best. They ask about shielding. The closest thing we can get to is either a patent for an electromagnetic field generator, which can be good and bad for you, right? So, or water shielding. I mean, it's ridiculous. Once an EMF can literally penetrate just about anything. A bunker. I mean, these are infra and ultrasound weapons that were, internationally.
So if you're a target, there's virtually nothing you can do. And if they fail in their electronic means, they can always send the FBI at you to do a sneak and peek and take your photograph or do whatever they want. As they have done with us, by the way.
So, like you said, if they feel like someone is telling them to either hurt themselves or others, the first thing I think of, obviously, is like weapons and home. Is that accessible? Like, is there someone that can take that gun from you? Like, do y'all ever have that fear that they're gonna just react one morning like that?
I'll be honest, because again, I do believe in our Second Amendment. I think without it, we would have been invaded, or we'd end up like Australia, because that didn't end up really well for them, did it? I mean, being honest. So they're also having a significant problem with this same thing. So we try to stay out of their affairs. I mean, obviously, the constitutional rights violations, not to mention, we're talking the Nuremberg Code. A lot of these people, I mean, because of certain PM technologies, they're collecting medical data, like real time. They're analyzing this, monitoring this data. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, we have certain victims, to be honest with you, that have been human trafficked. I mean, others that have been told to do things like Mr. Santiago had a gentleman that took a firearm into an Austin airport and relinquished it to the TSA, was arrested, had to go through court, gave up the firearm, paid $5,000, but he was told to go in and do this, that he was going to meet someone.
And if you think the internet is big, if you think blockchain is big, this is going to blow it all away. Because there's nothing bigger than connecting our minds to the internet.
I find it interesting that that's what's going on. That's what they're admitting. They're saying, hey, this Microns project is going straight to the source. We're not taking it from the global internet perspective. We're taking it from the brain itself. And eventually, those two things will merge. So the public announcement of a project like this is pretty telling about where we are.
On our website, even though I've got to update it, we have what's called a psycho-ops section. And we outline the tactics that these RODs and the operators use.
So if you have people reach out to you that say...
Yes, sir. To answer your question, the fact is, we send them to medical services if we feel they're suicidal, or, we're not doctors. I'm not. And granted, I mean, So, and one of our doctors is a eye doctor, which is great because the way she's explained the occipital lobe and basically using your head like an old set of rabbit ears. So it's streamed through your secondary optical nerve, and these people literally have these 2D perceptions. So they start seeing, believe it or not, they'll see like shadows or little holograms of people, and it's terrifying. It's like the real life version of the Matrix, to be honest with you. And it does exist, and what I try to do, at least in that small brief, because our main brief is about, it's huge, but we prove every aspect, delivery, methods, means.
Linking brains to machines and creating machine brains. Is that something we can handle?
Mind transfer, mind copying, whole brain emulation, etc., for the purposes of training, research, and development.
Stuff of science fiction? Nope.
called the information injection feedback loop. It's bidirectional, so they can upload, download at the speed of light. The system can, the supercomputer can. This information injection feedback loop, this neural link between the victim's brain and the supercomputer.
Linking brains to the internet and data clouds that make an unlimited amount of information available to us all the time.
You are connected as an organic computer. I mean, this is one of the most quote unquote conspiratory theories that's been around for many years, decades. But the reality is we're now facing the reality of that, and you will see this.
It is called the Sentient World Simulation. The program's aim, according to its creator, is to be a continuously running, continually updated mirror model of the real world that can be used to predict and evaluate future events and courses of action.
Digital twins integrate artificial intelligence, machine learning, and software analytics with data to create living digital simulation models that update and change as their physical counterparts change.
Even now, at this very moment as we interact, I change. I'm getting to know you. I gather knowledge from your experience.
Backtracing. I mean, we backtraced certain networks to the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the CIA, Langley. Granted, we understand that it's used for a lot of different things, right? But to be used as a weapon, I mean, you're literally creating terrorism. It's not preventing it.
Well, that's what that was going to be my next question.
Yes, sir.
Who do you blame? Like, who's the source of this? Who do you perceive as being the main agitator in this?
Again, want to stay objective, but if you think about a certain agency that has had a checkered past in certain things like Monarch to Guinea Pig to MK Ultra, I mean, it doesn't take a far leap of the imagination to assume that this is the new MK Ultra or close to, right? So it induces the same things. If you want to make someone feel euphoric, you know, they can do that. Yeah. If you want them to feel sad, happy, like they were on a barbiturate or they're hallucinating, you know, granted they can, it's all there. So, and it's remote. It's very hard to trace, and most of these people are, again, they go tell their family members and their kids that I'm having these visions, or I just started hearing these voices and they're telling me to kill myself, or that you turned me into to DHS or someone of that degree, and they're like, well, you need to go to the doctor. And what does the doctor do? I mean, they're not taught about bioresonance weapons, right? Yeah. Or neurological weapons. I mean, yeah. So they go on lithium and then they're bouncing off every wall, and I mean, it's a tragedy. And
it's a cycle of not being able to get help and whatnot.
And not being able to ask the simple question, like, why would you focus on, unless there was a nefarious, so what do you do in an investigation? You normally follow the money, you follow the benefit.
Well, if you go all the way back to Norwood Wiener, the goal of creating artificial intelligence was for them to become gods, to create an all-seeing eye. And the computer and both the computer and internet were entirely projects of the CIA. So the cybernetics group really that basically dictated the direction for this project was intertwined with the CIA. And what's interesting is out of the cybernetics group came two fundamental projects. So one was the creation of the personal computer, and the other one was MK Ultra.
Can we handle the answers? Yes, we can absolutely yoke brains to machines to create these interfaces. There's a brand new DARPA project that starts this month. NESD, Neural Engineering Systems Designs. The colloquial name for that is the cortical modem. Implants in the brain that allow real-time input and output from the brain remotely.
Your every activity, transaction, physical or virtual communication, and yes, even your innermost personal thoughts will be cataloged and uploaded to a Hive-based AI system on the global information grid.
So what would be the benefit of, you know, and I didn't used to do this, but if I saw a homeless guy on the street before and he was talking to himself, I'm like, oh, that poor guy. Mm-hmm. But now I take a step back and I'm literally asking myself, because there was an old MI5 microwave engineer, and he talked about the fact that how Britain, some of their scientists at the time, would literally drive people from a good paying job or a a decent citizen to dereliction, and somehow that was a win. And I know it sounds farcical, but this technology has been around for 50 years. So I know that a majority of the public is unaware, and I don't think that's a good thing because they're defenseless.
Yeah,
so
they don't know because it could happen to them potentially.
And who do they blame, right? So you're the closest agency that they reach out to. And I understand the compartmentalization and the way things are hid in dingy basements. They always have been, right? But I mean, if we're being honest with each other, this is not mental illness by biology. This is technical mental illness on purpose, but I couldn't tell you. It just doesn't make sense that it's happening everywhere. Like literally we have victims coast to coast.
And so I pulled up your website. You have people reach out to you here as well, it looks like, targeted victims legal outreach. Do you have people reach out to you that way as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So literally all we're trying to do is get them off the EBL and, bring some peace to their lives. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
And this is the PSYOPs experience you were talking about?
Yeah, so those are like a text-to-speech version, right? So kind of take people through, kill yourself, I'm an angel, I'm a demon, you're trying out for the FBI or the CIA or a special forces. People are told all kinds of things, so we document it, and then we create, what we can. I mean, to show people what the tactics are being used by these RODs. So, and we know they're in comm centers.
To act, to claim that birthright and begin to express ourselves in that way. And that's not out of anger and fear. It's out of concern, empathy, love, and compassion for the people on this planet that we care about and those that we don't even know yet. The fact is, change is what's required, and not an external driven change, but an internally recognized need to change.
Them take a U.S. patent list to their doctor. And if you look at it, I mean, some of those patents are pretty old. I mean, we've got a new list that's like 250, and the consequence is detrimental. So
is that on here, the patents?
Yeah, so if you go under more, and then down to the bottom, file share, and then U.S. patent list at the bottom.
And then, okay, so obviously you said you're trying to get these people help. And then is there anything else that y'all are trying to do besides just find the victims, get them help? Because you don't seem like the type of person that's just like, here you go.
Honestly, they find us, so it's not like we actively search for them.
And they find most of you through Facebook, I assume?
Facebook, yeah.
Okay. Alright, and then...
And is your Facebook just under Cognitive Investigative Services as well?
Cogtech 1.
Okay.
Cogtech 1.
And sometimes I do get frustrated with certain agencies, so you'll see that, Mr. Burns and Mr. Cohen, I'm not very friendly with.
Most people are frustrated with a lot of agencies, right?
Well, I guess...
And is that on your website as well under...
It's at the bottom. There should be the little icons, and then we have Truth and...
Truth Social?
Oh, all your social.
Yeah.
I was talking about all the...
I mean, I'm independent, so I don't like to politicize it, but 2 former administrations have already apologized for this. So Clinton came out with those committees and said, we're sorry about this, human experimentation on people with this same weapon. Other doctors like Dr. Hall, God bless him, he still works on this, and he's riddled with cancer, and it's terrible. I mean, it's literally, we call it, I came up with the term neural soul snaring, because they cannot get away from it. And with this construct that's induced, and people think it's a fallacy, but if you look up how they're helping the blind with the same technology, literally people that have never seen, with an entire spectrum. Imagine, just a victim out of the blue. You close your eyes, you see a 2D hologram, and it seems like you're surrounded by other people. So the technology, the way it works, is even if those are other people in that neural network and the perception or their avatars, and it sounds crazy, but you don't talk directly to them because brain to brain doesn't allow you to do that. It literally has to go through a server, be encoded, decoded, and often with the networks they create things like noise and filters. So the ROD, if you say like, how's your day going? Granted, it'll go, to the Q-Wave server, and the ROD could turn to that guy and say, well, you're an asshole.
Dr. John Hall.
As I understand the memorandum from the President, it's for you to determine if current legislation is adequate in protecting individuals and if there's any ongoing experimentation. In reviewing the common rule, it's very obvious that there's a lot of loopholes to informed consent. All of the horrific experiments you've mentioned, Willowbrook, MKUltra, radiation experiments, mostly were done without informed consent. They were funded by the DoD and intelligence agencies, where I'm not even so sure you would know if there's an IRB, much less if an IRB is looking at informed consent. As a physician, relative to some of what you're hearing today, in the community, we are seeing an alarming rate of complaints of use of electromagnetic weapons, microwave auditory effects, silent sound spectrum, EEG cloning, which has taken the lab out of the laboratory and into the home. Most of these, from the research that we reviewed, can be done remotely. It seems to be more weapons research than medical research. I personally corresponded with upwards of 1,500 victims, all complaining of identical complaints from every state in the nation of being exposed to electromagnetic radiation, non-ionizing radiation for the use of cognitive control or behavior control. I've submitted a paper to you, and there's another paper submitted to each member from another physician in Kansas City, alluding to the same thing.
Thank you. Ms. Catherine Nestor.
My name is Catherine Nestor, and I'm from Pennsylvania. This commission has spoken of a long history of abuse of the human research subject. Although no one mentioned MKUltra today, President Clinton recently apologized for this. My young child and I have been used as non-consensual test subjects. We have been subjected to COINTELPRO-like stalking, remote neural monitoring, and electromagnetic torture, resulting in psychological and physical damage. And I won't go into the details of that because I have 4 pages written in here that is very similar to Connie's testimony. Please do not wait 70 years to investigate this. I ask Dr. Amy Gutman to begin today. There is new work for the Commission for Human Subject Protection on our shores. And please give us a dramatic response, Susan, and please give us a congressional hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Marshall.
Good afternoon. My name is Connie Marshall. I'm a former mayoral candidate from Louisville, Kentucky. I have never been involved in any criminal activity. I am an 8-year victim survivor of assaults by directed energy weapons. The torture I've experienced consists of body overheating, body extremely cold, seizures, heart pain, ear aches, itching behind eyes, burning behind eyes, swelling, headaches, involuntary movement of my limbs, exhaustion, speeding and heart racing, hair coming out by the handfuls as if I've had chemotherapy, mind paralysis, being hypnotized or placed in a trance-type state, being tracked by a drone or satellite, controlled dreams, sleep deprivation, V2K, which is voice to skull, projected sound, extreme muscle spasms, and extreme muscle cramps, being made to fall down, blue circles around the pupils of my eyes, and I'm here and you can look at them if you like. Low frequency noises in my home, high frequency noises in my home, sexual stimulation. Numerous electrical appliances in my home are destroyed. 4 computers, 2 fax machines, 7 telephones. I am watched in my home 24 hours a day and followed around everywhere I go, though I do not have a criminal history.
That if people do wake up with this symptomology, they need to at least ask their doctor and start with some screening that doesn't exist. So we have them take a U.S. patent list to their doctor. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, I mean, some of those patents are pretty old. I mean, we've got a new list that's like 250, and the consequence is detrimental. So
Is that on here, the patents?
yeah, so if you go under more, and then down to the bottom, file share, and then U.S. patent list at the bottom.
I got it.
And then, okay, so obviously you said you're trying to get these people help. And then is there anything else that y'all are trying to do besides just find the victims, get them help? Because you don't seem like the type of person that's just like, here you go.
Honestly,
like,
they find us, so
Mhm.
it's not like we actively search for them.
And they find most of you through Facebook, I assume?
Facebook, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right, and then,
And is your Facebook just under,
We've also found that they're pitting people against each other. It's like,
yeah, it's not good.
it's crazy.
So then, I'm scrolling through the website here. I'm just looking through the different tabs. One thing that I just saw, so there's this wanted U.S. officials.
Yeah.
And it's Special Agent Phil Bates, and then if I scroll down, it's U.S. Attorney Kristen Brook.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they on here?
For each and every state, the FBI has a JTTF or Joint Terrorism Task Force officer. This is the person in your state responsible for referring you to the TDSB NIS code list regardless of your background. You could be a felon, a PTO parent, a Catholic, a soccer mom, a grandmother, a child, it does not matter. 99.71% of those on these lists are non-investigative subjects, have not committed a crime, nor do they have active investigations with the FBI, but targeted victims upon going through the TSC or terrorist screening centers disappear into a nightmare of electronic surveillance, microwave torment and weaponized remote neural monitoring, torture, slavery and human trafficking. The FBI JTTF officer in your state must be held accountable as their liability for your safety and issue the equivalent of a torture to death warrant without due process upon targeted victims. Fight back by filing complaints on them specifically with the FBI and DOJ.
Just like Jennifer DeStefano, is I started receiving phone calls that, oh, your daughter is kidnapped and you better come pay this ransom. That just testified in front of Congress, right? So, I did a back trace, and I was always curious because when Mr. Manning explained it, on the news, it was that it was dark web hackers. Mm-hmm. So the curious thing, though, is they don't have that technology, Stingray, to actually break into, networks, monitor the daughter's phone, then of course get a voice profile on her with, that's called VM, yeah. And then of course replicate that, call the mother when the daughter's on a ski trip, and then you can't back trace a voice over IP number, even if it's to an app, the GSM or the provider, even if it was with a prepaid credit card, it doesn't make sense. So same thing happened to me. There it was. We're going to kill you, kill yourself, we're going to kill your kids. And no, first it was the phone calls. Then I reported it's 911. Mm-hmm. Yep. I found 3 cameras in our house, like literally one in the bedroom, the bathroom, and the living room.
Is this the house you currently live in?
No, actually we got out of that apartment, but okay. It wasn't even, under my name, frankly, my significant other. Yeah. So, I've been through hell with this too.
Did
again.
you turn in those cameras to anybody?
Yeah,
were they able to track it or anything?
Of course, Phoenix PD
has been lying to the people. And the American government, the Canadian, the Australian, they have been lying. They have been lying to protect industry, protect their profits, to protect themselves from lawsuits. I believe that this industry and the part of the government which is encouraging them will be responsible for more civilian deaths and suffering than all the terrorist groups in the world ever. With the growth of the industry over the last 15 years, I would say now that these people are probably going to cause more death and suffering than the entire Second World War. And is that genocide? Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. And are they going to get away with it? Yes, because they are untouchable. They are outside the law. Scientists at the end of the war were hanged for what scientists today are doing and getting away with. But yes, they are going to, in my opinion, commit the worst genocide this planet has ever known. Not just people, but animals, plants. They are probably going to cause more destruction than a global war. And in several hundred years' time, people will look back, whoever survives, and look at what we tried to do to stop them.
It's time.
You know, and I admit even I feel bad for you too, is that, you know, they have no idea, not saying that you don't, but, you know, local law enforcement has no idea about, so they tell you, oh, it's very difficult to trace. Mm-hmm. So if, and I understand the same for you. So how frustrating it is if you just compile the complaints you've had in a year in Phoenix and then cross-reference that with across the nation, you're going to find millions of people that complain about being either electronically harassed, gang-stalked, community-stalked, and we know that those are often CHSs, but, you know, they're literally preying on grandmothers, and they're being burned in their beds with RF. Yeah. You know, their genitals are being electrocuted. I mean, I've got a veteran that won't even leave her house. And every time she lays down, you know, what does RF do, or EMF? It heats you up, and it's an electromagnetic field. So a lot of people complain about things like feeling like they're raped and, you know, assaulted.
A new method developed by MIT researchers involves broadcasting radio frequency signals toward a person, while the signals are also reflected back to the receiver. The captured radio signals are then studied by a deep learning algorithm.
The system then takes those algorithms and correlates communication and behavior data. When I say communication and behavior data, what I'm referring to is impulses and identifiers, okay? And then that brain activity is then sampled, remotely measured, and then integrated back into RNN data for the purposes of creating a cognitive model of the victim's brain.
So, in terms of Mr. Bates, I reached out to him because originally the RODs that contacted me asked me to come work for this gang stalking unit.
And who were those individuals?
Identified themselves as Mr. Bates and Miss Brooke. It was literally like, you know, a couple days after I got a phone call. I believe it was Agent Simcoe. It was a federal agent, and
so it was an actual phone call, or was it through,
then,
that's when you heard?
And then it came on, and first it was, you know, we're going to raid your house, we're coming in to get you, there's a, you know, everything from we're going to kill your girlfriend, we raped your girlfriend, to, I got to the point, you know, where I started looking up the patents and some of the back trace techniques, right, to tell the difference between an automated program and a person. You basically insult them. So once you get an emotional response, you know.
So this is what triggered basically you looking into all of this?
Yes, I wanted to understand. Went to a doctor. I was asked, at least, you know, with that form of communication, you know, identified by Mr. Bates and Miss Brooks, come work for us, work for this gang stalking unit.
And was there continuing communication, or has it ceased, or?
It went on, and every once in a while it's still, I know I'm being monitored with the same version, but it's not as intense. So whether it be willpower, and literally that's what it comes down to.
A bridge has been created between physical reality and virtual reality, and human intelligence and artificial intelligence. What is real and what is fiction are seamlessly blended together so that there is no clear distinction between where one ends and the other begins. A continuous link between the human brain and a neural processing unit allows an individual's consciousness to be emulated on a neuromorphic chip. It allows the co-mingling of physical reality with virtual reality and human intelligence with artificial intelligence. The unique resonance frequency of a targeted individual's DNA is used to create a link between the human mind and a neural processing unit. This creates a bridge between the physical world and the virtual world, allowing virtual agents to identify, track, monitor, and manipulate a targeted individual. The neural processor wirelessly links to the human brain using the resonance frequency of a targeted individual's DNA. It is
but if you understand what this forced brain to brain does, it's like a form of slavery. Let's just assume you were connected to your colleague 24/7 a day, and everything you did, from going to the bathroom to intimate with your significant other, taking a shower, chastised, treated badly, told that they're cheating on you with someone. I mean, these are the common tactics used. So if you look at even the military playbooks of the psyops at Dietrich, it's exactly that. So
can I ask, because you mentioned like your significant other and a daughter, do you have they seen even the symptoms from you? Is it something that maybe they physically can see from you, or were you ever concerned that maybe they were going to be a part of it?
Yeah, so it's been threatened that my kids have been remote neural monitored. So I have 2 little girls.
2 girls.
16 and both 16 right now.
They'll
so.
always be little girls.
Oh yeah, my baby's the
No
best
matter
part
what.
of me. So it's.
So or you've been threatened that they are.
I'm not suggestive in what I ask, but I'm timid. So I'll ask them, granted, generally about fun stuff, because a lot of another tactic is they tell people that they're clairvoyant or they're telepathic, and literally it's a synthetic version. So if you look up the technology, it's often described exactly as that. So, and this is without an implant, which is crazy, but a lot of the TI community thinks that they have these microchip implants or nanotech, and granted that tech does exist, but God forbid that be there's another way to do it.
Right.
So a couple other ways to do it.
But as we know right now, you feel like they're safe.
My daughter said once that I asked her if she's had any visions and what they are. I'm not concerned at the moment, but I literally had a victim call me, a friend, the other night, telling me that his 9-year-old is having these symptoms, and the commonality I found in a lot of people is their ADHD, right? So that can also be induced by this kind of long-term remote neural monitoring, or at a young age. It also inhibits learning, growth. It's terrible. So his son, which is 14, was in the backyard and thought someone was on the house. So obviously I'll ask you a simple question: is there's no intelligence or surveillance fruit with a 9 and a 14-year-old, right? How could there be?
Is there any way, and again, I'm asking because I don't know everything, because we talked earlier about the schizophrenia, and it is, like you said, that appears in your late teens to 20s. How can you know, or a doctor know, or anyone know the difference between, obviously 9 and 14,
Sure.
14 may be a little different, but when you're in that 19-year-old range, how do you distinguish a victim of this versus maybe someone that...
I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do see one. I take ADH med, so Adderall.
Yeah.
I talk with her. I show her, the science, which is really nice. And, she's even said, we weren't taught this kind of stuff. So I can tell you from my experience and having both, right? So thinking back, I've had both the weaponized version and the, full-on kill yourself, go out and do something bad. It's disturbing. So tinnitus, again, hair loss, phosphines for sure. Not
combo of those symptoms with it
exactly.
versus just what would come. Okay.
Fatigue, but I can think back as far as maybe 5 years that I think I was remote. I used to own bars and restaurants, and I can remember back to thinking I had tinnitus, and I would get these weird phosphines kind of without touching my face or my eyes. It's a charging of the retinal cells, right? So when you press on your eye, you might see stars. Well, they come out of nowhere.
In an internal memo dated December 20, 2019, Pentagon leadership urged military personnel not to take DNA tests, warning that they create security risks and could negatively affect service members' careers. The memo noted that the tests could potentially create unintended security consequences and increase the risk to the joint force and mission. The memo specifically mentioned using the DNA for mass surveillance and for the tracking of individuals without their awareness as a top concern. This memo seems to substantiate whistleblower and former private security industry specialist Brian Coffrin's claims that the resonant frequency of the DNA is used to monitor, track, and control the minds of targeted individuals.
To manipulate everything you do and see and hear and think and feel every single minute of every single day, so totally and completely.
The new model regards DNA as a stable waveform of information that is not primarily acting through the molecular chemistry and composition, but through the oscillations and coherent acoustic and electromagnetic fields that the atoms and molecules create. There exists a complex interference pattern at the cellular and subcellular level, produced on the one hand by the mechanical or elastic vibrations of the atoms and molecules in the liquid crystal hydrogel environment, which would entail Fröhlich-like wave patterns of phonons within the tiny tubes and cavities of the cell organelles, such as the microtubules, the mitochondria, the electric dipole lipid membranes, or in the geometry of the DNA macromolecule itself.
I've been referred to the TDSB NIS code 3 and code 4 list. There's no doubt. What list I'm on, I can still fly, I don't have issues, but there is a deep, dark rabbit hole that people are ending up in some dingy basement, and literally those neural signatures, whether, and I don't believe it's the NSA because they don't seem to be that type, right? But
so who do you blame? Like what is the agency that you think is the source of this?
Well, I mean, I look at DARPA first and foremost, right? Research development since 2008 and prior to, they between them and let's assume the CIA, some kind of co-op, that they have created these constructs. So not just, and the same militarized weapon was developed by the CIA and DARPA.
What do you think should happen to the individuals responsible for this kind of technology, or even like you attribute yours to special agents?
No, that's really a frustration thing, and I know I need to take that down. It's nothing personal towards him, but after reviewing some of the victims and witnesses as part of my case, there was some effort to make something out of nothing. Like literally 4 different witnesses were complained about being threatened with life sentences, fabricating evidence.
There's a bioresonance to every individual, just like our fingerprint. Every person has an individual DNA, a different bioresonance. And so the original Stocklin patent is on my website, where Stocklin was able to go voice to skull with pulse transmissions, and then 92. And then after the rest of the development went black ops. We don't really know what happened after that. We knew we could put voices in group people's heads. What they did, and I know from the Russian translation from Cheryl Welch, from reading all her translated psychotronic stuff from Russia, that they figured out how to biocode these microwaves so that it can attack specific individuals.
They basically
is control it. So like with nuclear weapons, we barely kept those in control, with other weapons, not so much, like chemical weapons, but we need to start talking about this now.
There is a very real risk that you are going to become a full-blown 24/7 targeted individual.
So my final slide here is that, our future could go 2 ways, right? We could literally create heaven on earth. So we are all one giant being, and we are all working in unison, and we are experiencing these amazing things. Or it could be hell, where there's some evil AI or evil people controlling everything we do, and we're more like zombies, where we don't even know it. Like we think we're free, and we're not actually free.
To answer your question, you tell me. I mean, I understand you have viewing stations like B2K, I would hope it wouldn't be a weaponized version of, voice of God. Those kind of weapons should never be used on civilians, right? Because they're suggestive, manipulative, coercive. I actually reached out to Mr. Bates and Miss Brooke. I sent her an email, and I kind of lined up exactly what was going on and asked for a contact. Nothing.
Researchers have now demonstrated that consciousness is created in the microtubules when they respond to energy signals from the external and internal environment. The microtubules create a magnetic scalar wave that interacts with the DNA in the mitochondria of the cell.
Modern mind control is using scalar waves. This is a special kind of waves in physics which has been kept secret since more than 100 years. And the scalar waves can either adapt to the DNA of every person. Therefore, in Sweden, since the 70s, every newborn baby has to give its blood to a blood bank. So if you get inconvenient, they take your blood and then they beam it with scalar waves, because the blood has the DNA, and the DNA is an antenna for scalar waves, being able to receive scalar waves or to emit scalar waves. That is very important, that our DNA is an antenna. Most of the doctors don't know that.
They could take you. They could literally erase you. They could reprogram you in a way without you even knowing it. So you think you're in control of your own will, but it's actually somebody else.
It can literally stop your own thoughts from happening and replace them with other thoughts by sending thoughts to your head. And it's so sophisticated that you cannot tell people or individuals against each other for whatever purpose.
And really, it's an awareness thing, so I will change that, but it's not a threat.
Yeah, no, that's just caught my eye.
No,
you do have a big following too,
I understand.
You may not be of that nature, but some of these other people that you deal with, you say, hear those voices and hear those things, and I would hate for them to do something.
No, I get it. You're right, and I'll take care of it. I mean, the main objective is awareness. So we're pushing towards legal avenues, and the biggest frustration is that when people call for help, they're literally it's almost like a dereliction of duty or willful neglect. Because you mentioned R&M, and they've done it with me, and I record every phone call. In fact, I'm sorry I didn't have time to bring you. I've got a huge drive of phone calls, but
well, I saw some on the site. Are those all of the ones?
Oh, I've got probably
way more than that too.
Yeah, 10 times that. I mean, to about every agency you can consider, talking to everyone from the GOA to you name it. So anyone that's in the technology realm that develops and distributes this is,
You said you're looking at legal. I know you mentioned on your team you had the 2 doctors, the environmental scientist. Do y'all have anybody legally that y'all have on your team yet?
Yeah, we do. So we're, and again, I guess their strategy is multiple agencies, but the truth is we don't even want that. These people want their lives back. I mean, this is a weapon. And if I could answer the gentleman's question, I mean, wouldn't you consider it somewhat treasonous if you were, let's just say in charge of something like this that's delegated down on people regardless? There has to be responsibility, and these people have been destroyed. Mm-hmm. I mean, I literally went from making $20,000 a month to nothing, and had to build that back up again because it's so stressful. Yeah. You're told if you don't leave, go out, leave everything you have, they're going to kill your kids. Mm-hmm. So I had to take my own little sabbatical and find the knowledge, because I'm analytical like that. I mean, my biggest problem is I've always been too smart for my own good, so I'd rather know than not.
A blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
Connected to the internet, there's no reason you couldn't extract memories, which are just data, out of one brain and put them in another brain. Now, what would it mean to share memories? Imagine us entering entirely living in the real world as we do now, and also living in this virtual world where they are combined right inside our minds. But as soon as we connect our brains to the internet, emotions are also data. We could start literally to feel somebody else's pain. And now we say, I feel your pain. We don't really feel their pain. But in the future, we may actually really feel their pain. Like if they're sad, all of a sudden we could tap in, to your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, and you could be like, oh my God, I feel your pain.
I would love to work with you further and assist you if I can.
So is this your Facebook page then as well? Cognitive CIS? Investigative Services?
Yeah, and I'm sorry I made Mr. Bates a Nazi.
Oh, I don't see that. Is that on here
probably
somewhere?
don't want to see that either.
Is that down? I haven't scrolled through, but is that something I'll find as well? It seems like you have a pretty big size following, 28,000 followers.
There's a lot of people in need, sir. I mean, literally being tortured.
Is that built up over how long?
Couple months.
Couple months.
There are hundreds of thousands of people from coast to coast that are literally being tortured. It's and I hate to put it this way, it's been going on for 30 years. And what is it that you do when someone comes to you and they're literally, they have burns, they're psychologically, they're destroyed,
So have you had like 28,000 people reach out to you, or is that just a following?
The memo says the kits could expose personal and genetic information and potentially create unintended security consequences and increased risk. It also says the data in the wrong hands could be used to conduct mass surveillance or to track individuals.
Can generate an electronic signal that's characteristic for the DNA. This can read DNA from solution, and your blood is a solution, it's a liquid. We can decode it into a form that can be read by a computer.
I know, I've been told by others that, there's no way our government could do this, but this is our technology. There's no doubt about it. So
from there, IARPA wants us to deliver the brain up to the cloud. So this is a 40 gigabit per second brocade switch to the Internet 2 infrastructure. So this is like the fast internet, and we upload that brain to the cloud.
Phases. Also usually the radar has two, but there's one that has three, and this is very close to Whitby, where Simon Parkes lives. I have looked on it. He was invited to it. It's driven by the NSA. It's an over-the-horizon radar.
If it is the case that all these CHSs or proxy investigators are created and they got out of control the way they're daisy-chained, that's a problem that needs to get fixed, right? So I don't know if it's for expediency or it's actually the RODs. We understand the talk-throughs and the way they're chained together, at least I do. But it's a serious issue, and it's not a sensitivity one either.
Yeah.
So there's different versions of R&M, like when the NSA remote neural monitors someone or wants to, obtain information off of a foreigner, they don't even know. For the most part, unless they understand the symptomology.
Most people are frustrated wall agencies, Most people are frustrated wall agencies,
The true way that this technology works is that a complete DNA profile is obtained from the target, from the individual, the targeted individual. And then this information, the DNA of the individual, is used to determine the resonant frequency of the DNA itself. The resonant frequency is then used to fine-tune the technology, the radio frequency signals, the microwave auditory effect, and all of the other aspects of the technology to tune it perfectly to the resonant frequency of the targeted individual's DNA.
I'm really more disappointed in the American public that they aren't more irritated. I mean, they're starting to get there, but it's taking a long time. They aren't. I guess not too many remember history, or not too many think of history. Well, I can understand the fact that we haven't had a totalitarian ruler here since George III, so about 240 years. Whereas the Germans, the Germans are really sensitive to this stuff. Why? Because they've got living memory of people who used to live under the Stasi, or people who used to live under, still some of them, under the Gestapo and the SS. They know firsthand what a totalitarian state is like to live under.
The harsh reality is that most of the U.S. government's investigative, intelligence, military branches, research and development agencies and the Department of Justice are very much aware innocent Americans are being tortured, tormented, diseased and killed off on their watch with voice of God-style weapons. They senselessly turn a blind eye or accept ridiculous explanations like that of a war on terror, national security, national competitiveness, or the so-called necessity for non-consensual human experimentation as justifications in accepting the defilement of innocence and abrogation of the Constitution as collateral damage. History proves that dynasties rise, plateau, and fall much like Rome did based on similar arrogant philosophies: neglect, degradation of civil society, and abandonment of basic human rights. This issue has openly existed for more than 30 years, and the U.S. government as a whole has failed to protect and serve the people as they are entrusted and empowered. As shown here, they cannot deny knowledge of the issue and suffrage senselessly inflicted upon our citizens. Therefore, they must accept their dereliction or duty based on their actions and lack of action, criminal neglect, and likely complicity in a conspiracy to assassinate U.S. citizens in plain view. Our technologies and voice of God-style weapons were never meant to be used upon our citizens, yet they are. We commend every victim for their strength to endure each and every day amongst being ridiculed, stigmatized, relentlessly tortured, forgotten, and left behind by our own government. Cognitive Investigative Services stands with you and vows to support you in every way we can. We kindly invite you to pass the information forward to other victims seeking answers. We appreciate volunteers and welcome you to join our free legal outreach found at cistech.info. Stay in the good fight for freedom and to reveal this crimes subjugating the most vulnerable in our society. We believe justice will come, and we have strength in numbers as most of society fails to hear our cries for help. Thank you for your bravery, and God bless America.